Welcome back. Last time we completed our discussion of Suhrawardi and the resolution of God's knowledge of particulars in the third phase of Islamic philosophy. And now we want to discuss the next issue regarding Mir Damad's resolution of the debate between the theologians and philosophers over the creation of the world in time in the fourth phase of Islamic philosophy. Mir Damad was an extremely important figure who founded the school of Isfahan, in which theology becomes almost completely integrated into philosophy. The word Damad means son-in-law. The reason he was called Mir Damad was because he was the son-in-law of the most influential and powerful religious scholar of the day, Karaki. This is important to know because he had the protection of his father-in-law when he began to propagate Islamic philosophy, even if certain Muslim scholars were against it. But Mir Damad was a very forbidding figure who was able to establish a new chapter in Islamic philosophy, both by what he did and by teaching Islamic philosophy to many students, the most important of whom is Mullah Sadra, who really starts a whole new chapter in Islamic intellectual history and whom we'll discuss in the next segment. Unfortunately, Mir Damad is not so well known in the West. He wrote some of the most difficult works in Arabic that anyone has ever written. His style is extremely difficult. There's really no Islamic philosopher who's more difficult than Mir Damad. And he wrote that way on purpose, in a sense to hide himself from those who were not really qualified to understand what he was saying. He wrote with such difficulty that there are all kinds of jokes made about him in traditional Islamic circles in Persia. There's a book he called Sirat al-Mustaqim, the Straight Book, in which scholars joke that a Muslim cannot hear what's in it, and the infidel cannot even see the text. That is, nobody will understand it. And this at once protected Mir Damad from attacks by those who are against Islamic philosophy. At the same time, it makes it very difficult to understand his writings. He was very influential, not impossible to understand, but very difficult. Now, with all the debate taking place regarding the creation of the world ex nihilo that we discussed earlier, he introduces a hierarchy of time to resolve the issue. In discussing time and eternity, he introduced a third category. He said when we study the whole of reality, we detect three relationships. The first relationship is between permanence and permanence. That's like divine names, God as the knower and the seer. Relationships in eternity, or between a divine name and the divine essence, that sifat. Then he says the second possibility is the relationship between change and permanence. For example, God saying kun, or be, and the universe is created. The Quran says kun fayakun, or let there be, and there was. This would be analogous to let there be light in Genesis. This also involves the relation between all archetypes and their earthly reflections. And third, you have those events that are marked by the relation between change and change. This applies to everything that goes on in our world, within the boundaries of time in the ordinary sense. So not only do we have time and eternity, we have really three different worlds. And to explain the creation of the world, he tries to bring out a new category. Until that time, Al-Ghazali, Ibn Sina, and the others had been arguing for centuries over the eternal or created nature of the world. So the first possibility is that God created the world in time, which is the general understanding of most people. The other view is that there cannot be a time in which the world was created because time is a condition of creation, and God is always a creator because there cannot be a change in the divine nature. So in order to answer this debate, Mir Damad claimed that the generation of the world does not take place by God directly in time. It takes place in that intermediate understanding of time, which then leads to the ordinary understanding of time. This is a very complicated and significant new discussion in philosophy. So although Mir Damad also discusses in his books other issues such as being, knowledge, and so forth. His great contribution is on the philosophy of time, arguably the most difficult area of philosophy. That concludes our brief discussion of Mir Damad and how he resolved the issue of the creation of the world through a hierarchy of time. And now we turn to our final discussion of the grand synthesis of Mulla Sadra.